that they had the right man, yet no forensic evidence was found linking the defendant to the crime scene. A pathologist described the killing as particularly brutal, but the prosecutors were unable to prove that the accused had a history of violence. The police said that after murdering Allan Chappelow, Wang Yam had repeatedly stolen post from his house in an attempt to assume his identity, but credit cards, PIN numbers and a passport were found untouched and in plain sight on the victim's bed. The more I read about the case, the more confusing it became. Allan Chappelow was my neighbour, and Hampstead was my first home. In the 1970s, I delivered newspapers through its brass letterboxes, bought sweets from the post office, walked on Hampstead Heath with my family. It was on the heath that I learned to ride my bike one summer. My father said he would pay me £1 if I could do it, and where I went sledging whenever it snowed. Despite being so close to the metropolis, there was always a strong sense of community in Hampstead. For the Queen's Silver Jubilee, we ate lunch at a long line of cloth-covered trestle tables arranged up and down our road. At the Keats Grove Library, kind old ladies read stories to me and other local children. And though we were Jewish, we joined our neighbours for midnight mass at the elegant church across the street most Christmases. On Halloween, my friends and I rang our neighbours' bells, and when they did not answer or they failed to hand over treats, we pushed lit firecrackers through their doors. Later, in my teenager years, I loitered around Hampstead Tube Station with my friends and our first girlfriends, unashamed of our public displays of affection. Hampstead was not only the backdrop to my childhood, it was also the stage upon which it took place. I knew the trees on the heath and the names of the most generous shopkeepers, who gave me lollipops if I waited quietly while my parents shopped. I knew where to have the heels of our shoes replaced, our watches mended, our pictures framed. I knew which shop baked the best bread, sold the best flowers, made the best hot chocolate. It is, a physical knowledge. It's a place I thought I knew well. The murder of Allan Chappelow is a tragic and shocking story, and one that is, for what appears to be an open and shut case, uncomfortably complicated. Indeed, as I began to research it further, a senior barrister warned me that I was heading into murky, murky waters. He was right. A crime of this significance reduces its perpetrator and victim to familiar tropes. An elderly man beaten to death, a killer on the run. But there was so much more to it than that. I wanted to find out not only about Allan Chappellow's death, but also his life. How does a man come to live by himself in a derelict house in one of the smartest streets in London? And I also wanted to know about the man blamed for his death. How is innocence proved? What drives someone to murder? In a court of law, two stories are put forward. A jury is asked to decide which they believe, and one version wins out. Life, however, is very rarely that neat. I also realised that this story offered a rare chance to understand how a modern murder investigation works. In an age of constant connectivity, cheap international travel, DNA testing, blood scatter analysis and forensic phonetics, tracking a criminal and then building a solid case that will persuade a jury requires dedicated, methodical, investigative work and long, tedious hours spent collecting, documenting, and then sifting through evidence. A far cry from the eureka moments featured on television police procedurals. But the more I tried to connect the police dots, the less clear the picture became. And so I looked beyond the investigation. I tried to establish who these men really were. To accurately chronicle the lives of others is never an easy task. Objectivity is corrupted by the subjective lens of the author and the sources he or she relies upon. My effort, however, was made harder still because the crime took